Hello, everyone. Can you hear me well? Okay. Okay, so let's begin. Okay. I think. Can you hear me well? Can you confirm in the chat if you can hear me? Maciej, can you hear me? Can you confirm if everything works? Awesome, amazing. So, hello everyone. Welcome to the Value Ships webinar. Today, we're going to cover the usage-based pricing principles. First of all, we were asked to do so. Secondly, we believe it's an modern phenomenon and myth that needs to be discussed and kind of needs further education, because there are many like common beliefs regarding the usage-based pricing principle, usage-based pricing, that it's some kind of like a hidden grail or holy grail of SaaS pricing. And we believe it makes a lot of sense, obviously, but not in every case. And also, it's not something that is like completely new. It's something that has been with us for a while, but it's just a new way of calling it. And this is a new trend similar to the product-led growth, which again is very similar to having a great product leads to higher growth. So for us, in our cases, whether usage-based pricing actually makes sense, yes, it makes sense, but you need to really think through how does it actually make sense for you. So without further ado, uh, today we want to teach you about like basic principles. We want to unlock new perspective on the subject. You can grow as a professional, as someone who can maintain an educated discussion, and also you will learn if the UBP works in your organization, honestly, because this is this critical component. There are not so many of us, so be creative, open-minded, concise, and understanding. We are super willing to have a conversation with you, so no worries in that. Like, just raise your hand and just dial in and discuss. I'll be actually making pauses and breaks to ensure that you gather everything. So a few introduction. As Value Ships, we are a value management consulting boutique. We help clients across multiple digital industries, mostly software development companies and SaaS companies, but also we work with like banking, telco, on bringing the new life to their subscription models. So we're working heavily on the pricing and monetization, but also on strategy and business. Very often on special projects, more research based, more focused on retention and churn. In general, we know that software as a as an industry creates the highest value among all. That's what, but also we understand that the growth will stop in some moment, and that there are new levels of value that need to be unlocked. And this is why Value Ships was created, and this is what we believe in as a company, that there are like pricing and monetization is still an untapped source of profitability creation, which will be more and more important considering the crisis that we are facing in the upcoming months. Without further ado, so an introduction to the usage-based pricing. I have actually didn't sweat myself considering that we have some of the shelf materials on our own, which we'll be going to present. But actually, if you look, if you just Google OpenView, which is like a VC fund, and usage-based pricing and Kyle Poyar, you will actually see their materials. They have created such an outstanding content that not sharing it during this webinar would be a sin, to be honest. And I don't have any right to like some 5 or 6 slides that I'm showing to you. I just wanted to know that I have like I'm actually distributing their knowledge, obviously with my voiceover commentary, but this is something that you can learn from them as well. They are like really great in it. Well, basically, software change, as I said, software change from the data center to cloud, and now it's connected cloud. Previously, this was for the CIO. Right now, we're focusing on end user. What happens is that it starts for free and then pay more as you go as a principle. And obviously, previously you had like sales growth, then the inbound was created, inbound marketing was created, so obviously marketing led the way. And right now, this is product-led growth. So in a nutshell, you want to ensure that your product creates the value before someone purchases it. This is like the component of freemium and trial accounts, and this is something that like companies tend to do. And because of that, the usage and product adoption and the models of monetization this usage evolved as well. The truth is, the companies that apply usage-based pricing, they enjoy better economics than those who didn't incorporate the model. They have better net dollar retention, which is effectively an ability of the company to cross upsell the products in the customer base. So with an assumption that we are not selling anything within the net, can we grow without selling anything to the new business? This is a very strong principle, and usage-based pricing actually allows you to do it. So this is a good model. When you should think of usage-based pricing, this is like a first lesson. It's like when your previous like revenue generation fuel like kind of depleted, right? So when you can't boost more new MRR business, so you actually need to think of usage, of pricing on usage. This might be a good idea. Also, these companies, because of the fact that they're mostly relying on product-led growth, they tend to have faster CAC payback. So basically, the more usage based you are, the faster the CAC payback is. In other words, aligning your pricing with the usage allows your customer to kind of allows you to drive more value from the customer effectively. This is what this model does, and it is a really good model, and definitely it's not for everyone, but it's a good model. Basically, if you look at that from the growth perspective, these companies, they also grow faster, right? This is like a fact that basically if the companies want to grow right now above 100% a year, effectively they need to apply the usage-based pricing. At least this is the agenda that OpenView is pushing. And while I agree with the facts and the data, I'm not necessarily that optimistic considering the UBP as they are. And then let me tell you why. Obviously, they are like in the US market. This is a slightly different market than European market. Also, there are some nitty-gritty details that we'll be covering in the next on the next pages. Basically, usage-based revenue model. It's like kind of focused on changes in how people buy. So first of all, it limits the barrier of entrance, right? So like Google Cloud Platform or most of the tools. So you can start for free, and then you can think if this SaaS tool is for you or it's not for you. A good model also is focused directly with the price, with the value created. So the problem of most companies is that in general their value metrics that they are using as a principle. So value metric is what your customer pay for. So number of users, number of seats, number of keywords, mentions, email campaigns sent, like text messages, chats, all these things that you pay for, right? Effectively. So for instance, HubSpot charges based on the customer leads, right? Which makes sense because these things HubSpot revenue with their customers GTM success, right? A very good model comes from the Profitwell, who has their churn recovery product. And effectively, this model is very simple. It is that they are charging you a percentage of the amount that they have recovered of the involuntary churn. So when your customer has a credit card, this card expires, or they didn't update it, or it couldn't be charged at the moment, They are writing email campaigns, automated, they're trying again, etc. And they have a model of discovering additional sources. They are like additional sources of value and revenue. Effectively, they are like super proud of like recovering even 20 to 30% of the involuntary churn, which is great, to be honest, because otherwise you wouldn't get this. So it's expensive. Yes, it's expensive, but it actually works. Similarly, like where usage-based model works is like when you kind of move out of scaling on users. In other words, some tools, let's take a Slack model, right? Let's take Slack. If you go for Slack, you kind of need to scale on seats because every person in the company needs to communicate, right? Like this is just like they need to have an email account, and similarly they need to communicate. And so here probably usage-based model doesn't really work. But if you have for instance, CI/CD platform, the platform that allows for integration and development of your software teams, this is where actually you might be focusing more on the tasks reported or more on the workflows created rather than the users. Because at the end of the day, user-based pricing, so seat-based pricing, limits the ability to focus on one of the most critical metrics in software, which is daily active users or monthly active users, depending on the case. So you want to have as many active users as possible. And if you have user-based pricing, obviously it is somewhat limited. Also, this is well, usage-based pricing allows you to penetrate different segments that you wouldn't think of before, because it lowers the barriers of entrance. You can look for additional markets and services. And to be honest, I believe in this model, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Having said that, I think this is something that you need to figure out when you already have some initial product market fit. Why? Because creating the usage-based model actually requires some effort, knowledge, and also programming, which and it needs to be embedded in the platform itself. And at the initial stages of the startup, you have other things to think of than just ensuring that the model is usage-based. I'm just trying to say is that this is something that can work if you're trying to, if you grew for the last 2 to 3 years, you already have some customer base, you want to unlock new sources of growth, and then you can think of either optimizing or transforming yourself into the usage-based model. I mean, optimizing and transforming, because optimizing means, for instance, adding another value metric or adding a plan which is more usage-based, while transforming is effectively moving your entire customer base to the new model. And this is something that requires energy, resources, and knowledge, to be honest. So that might be a good idea, to hire someone who can actually help you, who had the experience in it, or is, actually can guide you through, because this is not easy. Basically, the trends that we have in software right now, they prefer usage versus users. And funny thing, this chart on the upper right corner, these are the relative preferences. This is a research done by Profitwell, and they have realized that in some cases this was clearly a software that had the usage-based like component, that scaling on users was actually creating a negative value for a negative preference for the customers, which is something that I'm not surprised at all. But this chart is from like 2017 or 2016, so it always was like this. Moving away from the license seats, so Microsoft Office type of model, towards more usage-based was a trend since like 5 years ago. And now right now it's just that the year ago or 2 years, actually a year ago, it was pushed to the market massively, with the pandemic and everything. Where does the model works is effectively an automation, obviously. So because it heavily links to the value. So you can charge for the volume of automated tasks, because at the end of the day you were paying for these tasks anyway because someone had to do them, right? This is a difference. Another thing is AI, where you here again you don't need to tie it to the human component, to the user, but you can rely on the value created. Similarly, API, well, this is like software to software communication. So here you don't need a user to actually derive value. So this gives us a very easy and straightforward conclusion, is that whenever your value comes from non-user behavior, or in other words, the less value comes from human interaction with the software, the higher your ability of moving towards usage-based pricing is. So if I have a Canva, like, it's kind of focused on the user creating the graphics, like like Adobe, or like licenses. So if I'm working on my desktop, doing stuff on my machine, on my in the app, this is probably more connected to the seats. But if your tool is more on the backend things, more on the things that are happening outside of the user control, this is something where you can actually use it on the usage-based principle, right? So whenever the tool works in a way, it's just like you just plug it and it works. It makes the most sense to it makes the most sense to actually think of it. So probably this should already give you the some level of indication on whether the model is for you or it's not for you. I think this is something that is worth considering. The thing is, many companies move towards this model. Like Cypress, New Relic, Autodesk, pay-as-you-go models, consumption models. Something that is more mechanics oriented. And obviously AWS is like the top of the top when it comes to this model. So I think this is something that makes a lot of sense. The thing is, usage-based pricing is going mainstream. So the adoption in time actually increases heavily. So we can expect that more and more companies will invest in this model in the future. This is according to the survey data of the plans and implementation. I think this is somewhat around 60% right now. So the adoption goes even faster. Having said that, it is higher in the United States, lower in Europe. And I will also tell you why in a second, why is this happening. Also, if you're thinking of like trading and going public, then definitely it's a fact that companies that leverage usage-based pricing, they generally have somewhat higher net dollar retention. This is a trend that we see, but obviously this doesn't necessarily mean that you cannot succeed if you don't have the usage-based pricing, right? This is all about being adjusting the product to the value. For instance, with a Slack, there is a fair bidding policy. I think this is far-fetched. Slack is not usage-based. They have the bidding policy where you only get billed for a customer that is paid. Like, for instance, if you pay for like 10 customers, you have access to 10 customers and 7 people use it. You're getting charged for 7. But this is just a fair credit policy rather than pure usage-based pricing, although it's a very nice, customer-oriented thing. So I totally get why they are doing it, but it's not usage-based pricing, so to say. As a summary, so basically This gives you business flexibility. Business needs to change. It allows you to play around with different models. It definitely shortens the purchasing cycle, because you can start low and move higher. The stickiness and retention and customer experience is definitely improved with that. There are more and more experimentation opportunities. That's 100% sure. The feedback collection goes faster because they start using the product fast, and this is something that you can very easily understand and effectively use for better product development. And then the investment appeal is actually interesting because you are kind of making a proposition to the VC funds, to angel investors, which is like, okay, so right now we are charging our users about $20. Our ARPU is $20 per month, but with the UBP, we'll be actually growing it to 100. So you can show that it is actually allowing you to allowing you to grow across the customer base. Because the biggest problem of SaaS companies is that their MRR, it goes like this, right? This is like kind of linear, and they don't really have the ability to move the needle, or actually the trajectory, like they're going 3, 5, 6K dollars a month. They have some churn, 3-5% churn, but it is kind of linear. But they can't really make this tweak with, okay, so it actually makes sense. Well, the cause of it for us as customers is obviously we pay more and more for SaaS tools. There is a thing like we call a subscription fatigue. This is effectively a problem, but to be sure, to some extent, I believe this is something that works in both B2C and B2B. This is something like how the world looks like right now. Like everything is in subscription, and UBP is effectively a better subscription. The con is unpredictable revenue stream, because if you are charging your user for actual usage, your customers for actual usage, well, you may have different strong variance in the monthly invoices, right? So that for some companies, especially which are like bootstrapped, that may be a cash flow challenge effectively. So this is something that you may need to consider, right? So if you don't have a strong VC background on the very strong unit economics and margins, and predictabilities in you have like other investments, like your SaaS is funding other SaaS or other company, that might be a challenge. Basically you can't really go with annual here. Effectively, because of the fact that you're paying, you need to pay for a certain amount of credits. You can't really pay, you can't really buy yourself an additional 12 months of peace. That doesn't work, unfortunately. You'll be most likely left in month-to-month churn rates and month-to-month billing rates. Usually, again, similar. It can screw your cash flow that you have the end of the month payments, right? So this is something that is, you need to have this, billing period. Then you're getting charged billing period. You're getting charged billing period. You're getting charged. This is something that is a problem for some companies, and effectively difficult for forecasting for both sides. So it's hard to forecast whether you are a customer, but also if you're a company. So as with everything, there are pros and cons, but as you can see, the more problems or the more negative sides of the UBP is for actually management and for the business model, while the pros are more customer oriented. So as a company, if you manage to figure out cash flow, payments, and forecasting and budgeting, I think this is something that you may consider. Okay, so usage-based pricing is awesome, right? We know, we have proved it's awesome. It's actually providing great, tremendous value. That's great. But are you sure if that will work this way? So we have done the research based on the OpenView, Profitwell, HBR, Forbes. We have also some knowledge on our own. So when usage-based pricing makes sense, is like this is success-oriented. So whenever your product aligns with the final customer goal. So if you're generating leads or generating the pure revenue with an attribution model, yes, this is something where it can actually work. Just look at the value proposition of Pipedrive, 28% increase, like customers who use Pipedrive, like close 28% more deals. This is a very strong value, quantified value proposition in which you can actually, try to play with the more. They are not doing it because this is a more sales-oriented tool, but they technically could potentially, charge you for success. That might be the case, but like everything that is aligned with the final value actually works. If you have a super sticky product, so a product that if the more the user gets to it, the harder for them it is to move out. Like Twilio, like developers in Twilio tend to create apps and proof of concepts within an API, and then they are not willing to take it because it was already developed. So they're just paying for it. This is something that is very good from the concept of value sharing, that you create so much value, and right now you are in a better negotiation position and you can dictate the price. This is something that you should be. It's like Peter Thiel going for monopoly, right? If you have a certain type of product that creates a monopoly, this is something that actually can work for you. Generally, there is a. I honestly think it's a myth to some extent, but generally customers prefer to go with pay-as-you-go model. So because they seem it's fair, this is more like I use it, I pay. Not always, and actually customers pay more in the pay-as-you-go model than they would pay in the fixed. When this model doesn't work, whenever your product is created in this way, that it would create an overages effect, so a taximeter effect, you might call it. So for instance, additional fees in telco, like you have like 200 minutes and then you're getting charged for additional ones. So you do everything not to talk through your via your phone, right? You kind of try to limit it. This is an overages effect. This is a serious problem in most companies. Whenever your product is highly seasonal and one-off effort, because they're like products like this, when, for instance, certification products, leads generation products, you generate a certain amount of leads and then you stop because your pipeline needs to move forward. This might be hard to do because. So basically, you need to have a product that your customers will be using and will be using it more and more. So if you have such product, then usage-based pricing works. For clients that have some budget controlling issues, so like I have $100,000 for this tool and I can't pay more. And this is why the PLG, the UBP is not that widely adopted in the enterprise sales, right? Enterprise sales like favors stable year-to-year or 2-year deals, and this is something that every CFO will tell you that they prefer it. And if your product moves more towards selling to the board, to the CFO, to the mid-market enterprise, then definitely that might not be such a great idea. The more SMB, the more usage-based it can be. Effectively, fear of loss is fear of loss, fear of like the loss aversion, you might call it. So some customers might be afraid to underutilize the tool, or overcharge the account. It works both ways. So okay, I will be paying like a certain amount, and I will not be that. I won't be using it, and like they don't seem it's fair for you to have them as your client. And similarly, that they're afraid that what if I in 1 month, and this is like a serious objection that you receive, what if we spend more in the platform that we wanted to? So this is like this Google AdWords effect, that you're afraid to change the campaign type, and you're afraid that you'll consume the budget quickly. This is this level. So there is a very simple algorithm created by OpenView. So how to decide? So first of all, look at your competitions. Like, are they charging on usage? Do customers like it or don't like it? If they like it, keep it simple for the buyer. So definitely, if their customers don't like it, you need to kind of play around with different models and schemes to ensure that you are retrieving the cost base. But if you can go into unlimited, go unlimited, right? If your customer, what about if your competitors are not charging on usage? Then disrupt it with the usage model, so you can become one of the first in the field. What if customers are hesitant? Keep it simple. So effectively, it all comes to two factors: whether there is already a market entrant here, and second factor is whether the customers might like it. Like that's the two components, like two principles. And there are like additional component which is the cost base. So obviously, as you can see, this is like customer, competitor, cost, customer, competitor, cost, CCC, which is effectively value-based pricing, competitive-based pricing, cost-based pricing. And this is something that, starting with this component, you can really think of it in a nice and easy way, right? So always considering these three C's in your pricing development, but starting from a customer, then through competition, then to the cost, allow you to ensure that you're capturing the maximum value. So this is just a reminder. When it actually works is like when you have a good value driver in your platform. So a value driver is everything that your product does, which drives value to the product and services. But in B2B context, this is more about the activities that you do. So increasing the profitability, reducing costs, promoting growth, limiting risk, things like that. It has to be aligned with strategic goals of the organization, right? So this is critical, and you can actually quantify how much value you create. But this is not a value management workshop. This is usage-based workshop. But I'm just trying to give you this that think if your product is actually adding value to the final customer goals. So what you should consider when pushing for usage-based pricing, this is from ValueShip's experience. Basically, if you look at price and costs in the model, you have price and customer segments on two axes. Every product, every traditional product, like Nike's, they have premium segment, like standard segment, budget segment, they have luxury segment, they have outlets. Like in an ideal world, a company tries to feel like the calculus under this price to customer segments ratio. The problem is that in most cases they are having a model that actually captures one type of the market. So effectively considering what are your markets, what are your segments, what are your customer segments, what are your buyer personas, allow you to play around with usage-based pricing. Because usage-based pricing doesn't necessarily mean that you're creating the linear pricing of scaling on a value metric. So you're paying for $1 for one widget. Not necessarily. You might be, there has to be a certain scaling effect to premium the more expensive customers are actually premium the budget segment, right? This is something that you need to figure out on your own, but this doesn't necessarily mean that you can, go with a linear pricing. This is something that you shouldn't do. Generally, you want to have multiple price points because they can capture a significantly greater portion of the market value. So, right? So you want to give the customers what they want, but at a certain willingness to pay, and this is critical. The way you can determine the price is either I will determine a customer price on something I see about you, or you will pick a price. You can play with two models. Either with something that, hey, tell me what are your costs, and I will reduce them by 20%, or otherwise, what are the indirect, like, here is something that I have in menu, please pick something from it. But also You can have indirect, and then contact sales, enterprise, direct approach. Unfortunately for you guys, at the end of the day, it always comes to the value, right? So how you create value, how it's perceived, then how much they want to pay for it, how well you set the price, and how well you are actually realizing it with discounts and everything. So your usage-based model needs to align with value, because otherwise, sorry, not sorry, there's no way to actually do it. It's like critical how you create your entire billing model, right? So how it aligns with the value. So whether you want to have more flexible approach, or you want to have it more transactional or more fixed or stable. Whether this is like directly monetizing, so you pay linearly, or this is like, different. They want to have it less predictable and more predictable. The usage-based pricing on this scale is everything, like most things on the left, but keep in mind you can play with different schemes. So if you have a tiered pricing, the traditional good, better, best, maybe you can create a plan which is more, thresholds based on sliding scale. You can play around with creating different plans. It's not that the fact that because many companies come to me and they're like, you have a certain pricing and we want to change it. And I'm always asking, but didn't this model prove to be effective? Yeah, but we want to change it to achieve further growth. But how do you come with this assumption that changing the model will be more effective than the model that you're currently having? Because we are not growing that fast. And I'm like, but have you done any research? Have you tried unleashing the new pricing? Maybe have you done the campaign which allowed customers to switch into something more user-based? Do you have any clues that your hypothesis actually makes sense? And this is something that really requires an effort, requires thinking, requires deep thought over. And unfortunately, not every company will become user-based. And also not every company will become product-led. And don't get too attached to the agenda that is pushed somewhere else. I'm just trying to show you that there are many ways of achieving at least a partial component of not necessarily user, but to achieve more value-based. Because usage-based is nice. Yeah, it's user-based, but it should be value-based rather than user-based. Because look at the Basecamp. It's one of the greatest software as a service SMB companies in the world. They have a very simple, like $99, if I remember correctly, price point for everything. And they just, we're good with that. They have increased the prices recently, but in general, they're not caring, right? This is like how we do. We want to be easy for the client. We want to be super predictable, super easy. We know that our customers outgrow ourselves, but this is the fact that we're just accepting, and we're good with that. And that's effectively what their value proposition is, and this is also fine. But every company has a slightly different secret sauce, and you need to find it on your own. But what can help is a very simple framework of 5 critical aspects of a good value metric. First of all, whether your value metric aligns with the actual value. So as I said, is it a value driver? How does it correspond to the customer goals? The first thing, this should be a go or no go when creating the final value metric. Whether it's scalable, allowing to for actually moving with the usage. Can I measure it in a transparent, objective way? Right. This is critical. So can I actually have an account that will tell me what is the usage, how much am I being charged? Another thing is whether customers are willing to accept it. So you may think of the best value metrics in the world, and customers are like, nah, we don't like it. And this is something that we have in the surveys. And whether the final thing is like whether the metric is predictable. It needs to be predictable for both you and your customers. So play it fair. Why? Because on some markets, it's the most critical factor. You can look at some usage-based metrics. So you have like Attentive with SMS messages, Snowflake with actual resources, data volume, Datadog with number of hosts, API requests, automated zaps, marketing contacts in HubSpot. More or less, this is how the typical pricing metrics model used like. So you have user time use, so named users. This is like seat-based, but also time used, concurrent users, things like that. This is the one of the most famous ones. Software usage. This is actually where you have an opportunity to do it more usage-based. HV, so hardware linked, AWS, super simple. This is a usage-based model since the beginning, so obviously easy. Company business units, again, not very popular. I mean, it's popular, but not really usage-based. Having said that, if you manage to link the company business units to the success-based, come on, this is something where you can play a lot with the usage-based pricing. So effectively, if you have software usage and success-based, this is something where you can start playing with the usage-based, or we should be calling it differently, value-based pricing. And actually, if you manage to move from user to software or like whatever pricing, but if you manage to move to the success-based pricing, you have the best pricing in the world, and your entire revenue engine is like flawless. And this is something that you can build upon. But this is like the preferences of value metrics. They vary across markets and customer segment. So here we have somewhat clear preference towards value alignment and scalability, according to the survey we have done in this material we have done for one of our clients. The thing is, this survey was done in US. And in US, we see a very strong lean towards value alignment and scalability. Whenever I'm doing these surveys in Central Eastern Europe, in Poland, in Slovakia, in Czech Republic, even in Germany, I see a much stronger result in auditability and predictability. In other words, US value, usage, scaling, alignment with the value, like not necessarily predictable payments. Europe, and let's say Central Europe, auditability, predictability. I want to know how much will I pay in my next invoice. This is a critical factor. And you already see that in this very simple component, you might need to differentiate the pricing across customer segments and markets. So one pricing, more value aligned, more usage based for US, but you can have a different pricing for Europe, and it's also fine. But you need to think like a marketer, like a commercial manager in like a retail company or in any B2B company. If you go to the traditional B2B company, they are having different prices for different markets. They are having different offers for different markets. You go to like Michelin, Goodyear, Bridgestone, like tire manufacturers. In some cases, they're using the very nice subscription, like Michelin uses the ton wheel model, where you pay for the tonnage and miles in a subscription model. But on some markets, less developed ones, you're just purchasing tires. And this is something that SaaS companies underutilize heavily. And the best companies actually do it on the market level, like Salesforce, for instance, or SAP, right? So this is something that you can use for your benefit. So basically, to conclude, the preferences towards value metrics differ. The fact that generally there's a trend for usage-based value alignment doesn't necessarily mean that this trend will apply in your country as well. I have seen surveys in which value alignment was like 40%. People and some markets were like 90% predictability, because it was about like financial management, and the persona was CFO. So we knew that there is no way of usage-based anything, because they are just simply not into that. They are into predictable. This good CFO ensures the business goes, and it's super predictable. This is the point. What you can also do, this is our another material from our client. We have done the analysis of 32 competitors, and what we have realized is that if you have the more than one core value metric, the CVM, you can charge more for your plans. So what we have realized is that if you manage to squeeze two value metrics in your pricing plan, so for instance, you're scaling on users and something more usage based, or you're scaling on pages and visits, or on API calls and users, or API or text messages and leads, or whatever, you are allowed by the market to charge a premium. Why? We have two hypotheses for that. First of all, it makes the pricing less transparent and less comparable with the competition. Secondly, it captures more customer segments. So the customers that are actually needing this, they are like, it increases the overall willingness to pay. Because why? Because imagine you have 10 customers. Among these 10 customers, the market is equally divided into 5 people, like two groups of 5 people. One group prefers user metric, and second group prefers more value or success oriented metric. If you present and funny thing is, if you present this towards these two groups, and you have actually two value metrics that correspond with each of these groups, you are increasing the likelihood that in the screening process you are marked as favored, because you, at least to some extent, you are checking their points that they're looking for, what they're looking in the pricing. You need to keep in mind that every customer, like, I'm not saying that every customer is different. It's because it would kill the concept of segmentation. I'm just trying to say that you need to be very, very careful on you need to ensure that your value communication, your value proposition, your value metrics are capturing as many customer segments as possible. But you need to know the segments. This is like one of the first things. Understand your competition, understand your segments. There are like the concept of overages, but I don't think we have like what to look for. Basically, there are like few things that you need to look for in the value metrics. So overages, whether we want them or not, whether there is a pricing transparency, we want to have it like clear or not, contract duration, whether you want to have a free plan, and are there any guardrails that save you from overconsumption of your platform, like that someone like some kind of cooldown periods, if you have a scraping tools, things like that, this actually may work. There are different models on the market, so from the utility base to the tier fee. This is actually something that we're going to skip because we don't have the time, but I wanted to focus on this. It's like basically you can implement the UBP in 3 core areas. So in the product-led growth, your key how you should start it is you should start from going for product-led growth. So sign-ups, activation rate, free to paid conversion. This is something that you want to have in your PLG. Then exit revenue, subscription commitments in sales, and in post-sales is like which features are adopted and how you can monetize them, and you're organically expanding within the customer base. Actually, I would say the last is the most critical, because this is where usage-based actually kicks in. So, Slack integrations, adoption of the tool, ensuring that you're connected with the ecosystem, that the more you use, the harder it is to churn from the tool. This is the best tools you can. So basically, you need to have two answers. You need to have answers on two questions. Sorry. One question is, what is my direct contribution to the client success? So whether I'm automating stuff for them like UiPath or Zapier, whether I'm actually bringing them more revenue like MailChimp or HubSpot, what is my direct contribution? And the second factor is how tangible is this success? How tangible? Is it quantified, or is it just some level of like, well, increased productivity, and no one knows what is the level of productivity increase, or what is the value that you're actually creating? So the more of these two, the better answers you have on these two questions, the better your overall pricing is, and the more value you can get from the customer. Because at the end of the day, you need to come with a good billing model. It's like how this links to value, like how does it actually, whether it's accepted externally, how does it fit with the value pool that you're creating? Because look, it's a very simple example. You have a tool that is reducing costs, electricity bill, for instance. And you know that you can reduce like 10% on average of electricity bill. You know that a customer on average pays $100,000 a year because it's a manufacturing company on electricity. You know you can reduce 10%, so you're reducing 10K. This is the value that you have already created. If you're doing this automatically, you just plug in a certain whatever widget, and you have the very nice auditable tracking system, you can charge 50% of the value that you have created with that. Wow. And this is something that you can do. Also, you need to compare it to the competitors to see if they are actually getting more value or less value. But at the end of the day, the differentiated value you created from you and your competitors, this is something you can share across you and your customers. This is the most important thing that you can come up with when it comes to the value metric, and then divide it with the value metric, like whether it's a unit cost, whether it's seat, whether it's whether it's text message, seat, API call, whatever. This is something that you need to align with properly. So basically, your value that you're creating is the quantified pool of the benefits that you're creating for your customers, and how they help to achieve, in B2B context, how they achieve their strategic goals. And your value metric is effectively the dominator. So if you imagine that a value is a big chunk of bread, your value metric are slices of this bread on how you're delivering it to their customer, right? This is a big chunk of bread, and now you need to cut it into value metrics. So if you decide, if you look at that from this perspective, you should be able to multiply the value metrics back to the value pool and show it to the client. And then you're showing, my dear client, I'm charging only 5% of the value I'm creating for you. It's super fair. And then moving towards usage-based pricing is easier, because you know how the value is created across the overall product adoption, right? So the more they use, the more value it gets. If you manage to get these two things right, you have a flawless pricing. Q&A and questions. Okay, so no questions. Let me just conclude it, because it's going as a YouTube material as well. So first of all, usage-based pricing is a great model, allowing for a very strong allowing for better unit economics and very strong product adoption, and it's generally associated with the product-led growth. Having said that, this model is not for every company. This model works when the value of your product is not necessarily linked with the human interaction between a customer and a product. So, for instance, if someone needs to operate within the platform in order to get something done, this is not necessarily the right aspect, the right area for the usage-based pricing. But if your tool allows for automation, for doing tasks in a backend instead of a human, so kind of either replacing human interaction or helping them with something like Twilio, APIs, or like Zapier automation, or AI software, machine learning software, crawlers and everything, then definitely you can think of it. This is like first component. Secondly, like thirdly, the more success oriented your value is, the more you can apply usage-based pricing. So now it's critical to really think of, can I actually link my care model, my tool, my product to the value I'm creating? If I can't, I don't really have an opportunity to do it in the right way. Fourth, always look on this from this. Do customers want this model? Do customers really want to have the usage-based pricing? Then whether my competition is there. If they are not and customers want it, move and disrupt the market with it. If not, if they're already there, you can think of keeping it simple or moving there as well, and then figure out your cost base, whether your cost base allows for unlimited access, unlimited usage, for instance. If you can't, sorry, but you need to think of some tiers that allow you to at least recover the cost base. Always C, but starting from customer, competition, cost. Usually SaaS companies start from like cost or competition and then think of customer, competition, cost. Always like this. And then when creating the value metric, keep in mind that value metric is a denominator of the whole value that you have created in the platform, right? So how much money, dollarized in money, in dollars, how much value you are actually producing. 100K, 10K, 50K. You can calculate pretty much everything. You can dollarize every value proposition. There is a lot of content on that. We are like, you can contact us if you want to know more about that. But you can dollarize pretty much every value proposition. And then your value metric is a denominator. So how you cut this value and deliver it to your customer. And this is the critical concept of understanding it. Your value metric needs to be value aligned, scalable, auditable, predictable, and acceptable by the customer. And now you can go try and think of your value metric, of your usage-based model. I think this is somewhat covering the material, the concept. We have managed to show the granularity of the usage-based pricing, and hopefully you liked it. And in case you want to discuss further with us, let's stay in touch and take care. Bye.